Hello, welcome to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the lovely new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 62,000 seater. But a defeat for Norwich tonight, an unfortunate defeat, I think, at 2-1 loss to Spurs, but one that they can take plenty of pride and plenty of heart from. Certainly, speaking to Christoph Zimmermann and Andre Duda in the mix zone after the game, they weren't too downhearted by this. In fact, Zimbo thought that they were unlucky not to win, let alone get a draw. So just seeing a few post-match comments coming through as well. That Jose Mourinho being quite kind to Daniel Farke after the game, saying that he hopes the season ends well for Norwich because they deserve it. So we shall see whether that happens, of course. But yeah, a 2-1 defeat here. Spurs will be pleased to get away with it, really, because Norwich had plenty of chances. The stats: Spurs had 14 shots, Norwich 12. 3 of theirs on target to Norwich's 2. And at one point, I think the possession in the first half was 70% to Spurs. The first half had been, the first 15 minutes had been really quite one-sided, and Spurs were well on top. But Norwich really came into it quite well, and their possession was much better. They just decided to sort of get back to their game, really, and to what they do best. And by the end, it ended up being 51% possession to Spurs, and Norwich had brought it down that far. And yeah, the lead came in the 38th minute. Todd Cantwell robbed by Giovanni Lo Celso as he tried to break away. Serge Aurier puts in a cross from the right. Dele Alli with good movement gets across Christoph Zimmermann and prods in from close range. Tim Krul with not with much chance with that one, and that's 1-0. 7 minutes before the break, and Norwich are reasonably disappointed at that point, to be perfectly honest. That's very loud. He's just brought right next to me, which is great. And yeah, it's so they were disappointed to go in down at the break, to be perfectly honest. But they kept it going, and second half they continued pretty well. And that first half there'd been chances for Pukki had fired a couple wide. Cantwell lashed one shot just wide. Lucas Rupp, who started on the right in place of the injured Emi Buendia today, he had 2 decent chances. The second one certainly was one where he needed to be showing that he had a left foot, but that wasn't too apparent from what we saw tonight, although he looked pretty tidy, quite in the Moritz Leitner mould, I would have said, in terms of a fairly technical player, very tidy in possession, and similar sort of physical build as well. But he worked really hard. I don't think any of the Norwich players will be too down with their performance tonight. I thought Kenny McLean was excellent tonight. He probably had one of his games of the season. He was just everywhere, working really hard, winning balls in the air, loads of tackles, a couple of shots as well. And yes, so going in at half-time, being down 1-0 was disappointing, but they remained very much on top from the start of half-time. And then the goal, the equaliser, comes in the 70th minute, and the away end are going bonkers. And of course, this stadium being one to tick off the list, a new one for Norwich fans. First time the club has been here, and that comes from a lovely bit of urgency from Max Aarons. Burst down the right, Rupp holds the ball up, plays it in field to Andre Duda, and he plays a lovely threaded little ball into the box to Max Aarons. Aarons is just caught by Ryan Sessegnon, who's an England under-21 colleague of Max's, and then there's quite a lengthy VAR check, which thwarts the celebrations in the away end for the penalty. Max had really celebrated getting the penalty to start with. And yes, eventually it was given, and Pukki rolls it to Hugo Lloris's left. The France goalkeeper, World Cup winning captain, of course, did get a hand on it but couldn't keep it out. 11th goal of the season for Teemu, and the away end went mad. But within 8 minutes, Norwich went looking for a winner, basically. There was just before the goal, Duda had been played down the left by Byram. He almost very, very nearly dinked across into Pukki waiting in the box, but I think it was Alderweireld just gets a touch on it to prevent that happening, and then eventually it's Cantwell lashes a shot over. But then Spurs break very quickly. Dele Alli tries to force a crossover. Zimmermann comes across with one of those sort of heroic blocks almost, when he chucks himself through the air to block the shot, and unfortunately for him the ball loops high and just perfectly to Son at the back post, where he's waiting to just nod in. Aarons and Krul can't scramble across that side in time, and within 8 minutes of Norwich coming level, Son had claimed the lead for Spurs, and that was that was really, really hard to take for Norwich, because they sniffed more than a point, and they were chasing more than a point as well by then. But really, the last 15 minutes, even with 6 minutes of added time, they were out of puff, really. Dermich did come on, Steepman in injury time. Hernandez did force one decent chance that again fell to Rupp, caused a bit of trouble on the left. Duda found Teti in the box, and Pukki in the box, and he teed up Rupp right on the edge of the box, and his shot might have just been sneaking in at the back post, but there was a deflection, just took it wide for a corner. So it wasn't to be for Norwich, but it's one of those nights where you can't get too downhearted about losing 2-1 at Spurs. I know they've not been doing brilliantly recently, but you look at the talent they've got. They were bringing Christian Eriksen off the bench, who, I know he's looking at going for sort of 11 million to Inter Milan at the moment, supposedly, because his contract's up at the end of the season, but he's worth at least 50 million. Dele Alli, Heung-min Song, Lucas Moura, Harry Winks is an England international, Vertonghen and Alderweireld at centre-back, Hugo Lloris, as I say, World Cup winning captain. So there's some top players there, and Norwich gave them a real scare. I think they can take a lot from tonight. Of course, we've got the distraction of the FA Cup at Burnley on Saturday. We'll see what that means. I guess Daniel will have to make changes. Emi Buendia, players like that, probably maybe even Pukki, wouldn't have played at Burnley, whatever happened tonight, because it's all about that Newcastle game ahead of the winter break. And if they play like this at Newcastle, then there's every chance that they can give them a scare. And thankfully, West Ham have lost 4-1 at Leicester tonight, so still 6 points from the safety line, and it's not done too much damage. It's just a shame, because they did deserve a draw probably, but there we go. They leave here with a 2-1 defeat.
How are you, Spurs?
And yeah,
listen, we'll take the 3 points.
I'm a Norwich reporter, mate. But
don't matter, listen, played well.
What do you think?
Played well. No, he's done well. Put a shift in. Max is on his way to Spurs. I think
Max Aaron as well.
He didn't fancy it, innit? He didn't fancy it tonight. I think he wanted
won
to
the penalty, didn't he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fair play.
All right. Have a good night, boys. There you go. Yeah, as I say, Spurs very happy with their night's work. But a 2-1 defeat for Norwich. We head to Burnley for FA Cup action, and then it's up to Newcastle, where if they can get something there, then of course that hope will really continue. But going into that 2-week winter break with Liverpool to come the other side of it, if they don't get something at Newcastle, then it's going to have that feeling that they're running out of games, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on those games against the survival rivals at home, like Burnley, like West Ham at Carrow Road, between now and the end of the season. So we shall see what the rest of the season's got in store for us. But that's it from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Great place, a 2-1 defeat. Head over to pink.com for all the reaction and analysis from this game, and thanks very much for watching.